Good morning. Welcome to 365 Days of Amazing Stories with Theo Mayer. Here we are on day 174, and I'm continuing tales from 1001 Arabian Nights. Now, I have to tell you, these stories are getting really interesting to me. Exciting to imagine. Who is it that thought these stories up? Just boggles my mind. Well, Scheherazade. She continued, of course, to tell these stories to the Sultan, and in such a way that his curiosity was, inspired each and every tale that she told, so that he just wanted to hear more of them, and she'd always stop without really finishing a story, so that he always wanted to know what was next. And you might remember that we were hearing the story of Zobeida and why she ends up beating these two black dogs every evening. And so soon we're going to find out what it is that brought this all about. You have to remember that she'd grown up and was left, when both her father and mother died, with quite a large sum of money. It was money that was split between her and her two sisters. And actually, when she began to tell the tale to the commander of the faithful, the caliph, and Jafar, and all who were there in the court, she did say that these two black dogs, they're actually my sisters. And we have to find out, how did her sisters get turned into black dogs? Now, you have to remember that she went into business, and her two sisters, they ended up getting married. And at one point in time, suddenly at her door was this incredibly filthy, haggard beggar who looked at Zobeida and said, "Don't you recognize me?" And Zobeida looked more closely and realized it was her older sister, who she brought in and then began to care for as best she could. She started to ask, "Well, what happened to you?" And then she realized that words weren't going to help at all at this point in time in this situation. So she brought her sister in and, fed her and gave her some wine and made her feel comfortable, gave her a bath, put on beautiful clothing, on her, and then took care of her for a month until she had recovered. Because her husband, at a certain point, had left her, of course, in some far distant land, and it's taken her more than a year to find her way back. 5 years had passed since she had gotten married, and though things had been okay for a little while, eventually the husband just took all that they had squandered most of it, and then left his wife on her own. Not good. Well, now Zobeida had said to her older sister, "You must come and live. You can be the mother of our family here, and let's just have a quiet life together. I have done well with my business, and I share that wealth with you completely." And so they lived together, wondering what had become of their middle sister. The same thing basically happened to her as happened to the eldest sister. Eventually she came back, haggard, beat up, clothes worn out, filthy. And the two of them now took care of their middle sister, as Zobeida had taken care of the eldest. Story was very similar. Time went on. They did quite well with business. And eventually the two older sisters said, "We really wish to marry. We want to be with men again." And Zobeida was like, "No, what good has marriage brought you? It is hard to find a good man. You don't want to get married. Don't get married." But they were dead set upon it. And so eventually they found suitable husbands, or at least suitable husbands, so they thought. And off they go to get married again and out of the house. Now, Zobeida had to, from the wealth that she had gained, some with the help of her sisters, had to pay the dowry for this wedding, which was not, or both their weddings, and it wasn't nothing. It was quite a bit. Sisters gone, Zobeida continued with her businesses and did quite well. In the beginning, she had made her wealth by spinning and weaving silks. Well, here she is by herself. She's got a great amount of wealth. She buys a lot of goods and a boat, and she takes all this and she plans to head off away from her town in order to find, well, commerce and trading elsewhere. The plan, of course, those points in time when a merchant would take off with goods on a sailing ship was to sail to a distant land, trade, sell those goods, and come back with what he or she had traded all that for and sell them in, their hometown. So Zobeida sets off. In the beginning, all is well. And then a big storm brews up from the sea and huge waves and, misty. The ocean is covered with a mist so that it's hard to see and know where they're going. And this goes on for 20 days, being tossed around at sea, and finally the storm abates, as they always do, eventually. And they can't see land. They have no idea where they are. It's hard to kind of get their bearings. And a man is sent up to the top of the mast to see if they can see anything from there. And he shouts with joy and says, "I see a fat pigeon off to our stern. Land it surely is." And so they turn the boat, and within a couple of hours, they're sailing into the harbor there of this land. And they have no idea where they are, but it is land, and it's obviously some kind of a city or a kingdom. Well, they anchor the boat, and Zobeida goes in to shore, and she has her, all of the people that are taking care of the boat to stand at the ready and just wait until she comes back. And off she goes into the city, toward the city, I should say. And when she gets to the main gate of the walls, she sees people there, and they're all, not moving. She gets closer and closer and realizes that all of these people have been turned to stone by some curse. And so she's looking at this in wonder. She goes in through the gates, and everywhere she passes, in the streets and the shops, standing in the doorways of the shops, everyone has been turned to stone. It's a frozen city. Well, she makes her way through the streets to the palace, which is almost in the center of this city layout. Of course, in the direct center, as was the style back in the day when design and architecture was more enlightened. The center of it all was beautiful gardens and a fountain, a place of peace and solitude, silence, where the cosmic forces could come in and bless the city. Well, the palace, in through the palace gates, and she was amazed because the doors were of gold. Hanging on one of the open doors was a silk cloth. It was being buffeted a little bit by the wind. So she thought to herself, well, clearly there are people here. There must be. She makes her way from one room to another, and no one but these stone figures. She comes to the room where the ladies inhabited that room, that space. And when she got in there, she could see the queen in her rich garments with a pearl necklace around her neck with pearls as the size of hazelnuts. And Zobeida was just amazed. The room adjoining it, well, inside that room, her curiosity was piqued even more. For there was a canopied bed. And center of the room, there was a jewel that was as large as an ostrich egg. And it seemed to have a luminous glow that emanated from it. There's a canopy bed in this room. And on either side, on a table on either side of this bed, there's a candle. Candles are aglow. Zobeida does not know what to think. There must be people. She goes from this room into the next, eventually to the kitchen, to the wine cellar, to the treasure house of the king, and no one. She can find no one. Eventually, she decides, I need to get back to the ship. She turns, try to make her way back. Night has fallen. And she can't find her way. She can't find a single place of refuge, except at one point she returns to the room with a canopied bed and the candles on either side. She decides, I'll try to get some rest. She lays down on the bed, covers herself with the covers, but cannot sleep. Who could? Such a mysterious place. I'd be thinking, am I going to get turned to stone? While she's laying there, unable to sleep, she hears a voice. It's a sweet voice. As she listens closely, this voice is chanting verses from the Quran. She sits up in bed, swings her feet off to the floor, and stands up. We'll stop the story there, as Scheherazade did. We'll find out who it is that's doing the chanting, if indeed it is a person at all. Okay, thanks for joining. Have a good rest of your day.